This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barreiro's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
Are you catching shade for both password and from Fallness of late? What's that about? What did I miss? Was there some kind of password controversy today?
I mean, a couple weeks ago I had a bad password performance, but I mean, that's a tough job.
That's a tough job. I don't rip anybody for that. That's not an easy position to be in, especially when you're kind of thrown into it.
Yeah,
it's not like something you do every week, right?
Yeah, it's once in a blue moon whenever Tenna wants to play.
Whatever. The critics are everywhere, you know that.
Yeah, exactly. I think this might be history where maybe Kevin Fallness doesn't want me to start with the Wild.
That's a great point. Does he? Yeah, be careful what he wishes for.
Well,
time now for the obligatory Kevin Fallness Minnesota Wild mention.
So after the loss to the Penguins, here's a Russo tweet. The Wild have now won 3 of their first 12 games. They are 0-2-2 on the 6-game homestand. Losers of 5 in a row, with 1 win in their past 9. 1-5-3. They are now 1-3-2 at home with no regulation wins. 24 goals against in the last 5 games. And the Penguins, who they just played, are 6-0-2 in their past 8. This team's in trouble. It's not looking good. Everything just seems so hard for them. Yeah. Every breakout seems like they have to struggle and work for, and everything that the Penguins did was just smooth and crisp. I mean, if the panic button isn't out now, I don't know, because it's hard to dig and climb in this league. It's a lot easier to just maintain.
We're in the opposite position, right, of the position we started last season in, as I think you know very well. I'm trying to call up the specific nugget stat that got my attention again today. Last December, early December, this team had a record of 18-4-4. What's our current record?
The current record, let's see. I didn't have it in front of me. They're not good. It's like 3 and they're just not good.
Well, but I guess I'm looking for the number of losses because I believe we already have more losses.
They are 3-6-3.
Okay, we were 18-4-4 last December 6th. So we've already lost a couple more games, and we haven't even hit. We'll hit November, obviously tomorrow. And I think the surest sign of desperation is every day there's sort of a different theory advanced. Well, we're too fragile. Well, we're not physical enough. Well, our second and third line people aren't doing the job. We're not holding each other accountable. That's what happens when you're running out of ideas already. It just becomes a different thing every day, and it's worrisome. Now, again, what's the way out of the box? Win 1. And then go back the next game and build on it and win 2. And, get to a place where, okay, suddenly they've won 6 out of 7. That's really the only way out of it. It's all the sports cliches that you hear. You have to start with 1 in a row for Mike Yeo. And try to go forward from there. The question is whether they're capable of it and how beaten down have they already become. And you get to that place, then you're kind of in a very untenable and scary position for a team that, let's face it, we knew from the beginning of the season at best did not have much margin for error. And for me, it's as simple as this. Everything, maybe I've been too obsessed with Jacques Lemaire lately. But I honestly believe, for me, everything goes back to defense. That's goaltending and the game in front of you. This is not an explosive team, not on a consistent basis. So then I go back to, well, if we can't count on that the way some teams can, then we have to do the basics incredibly well, and that goes back to defending our side of the rink, and that clearly is not happening. For whatever the reason, well, certainly including the penalty kill, which is one of the worst historically ever, right? Did I see the percentage for other teams? Is it 68% or was it 65? Horrible. It was well over 50% so far. I mean, that's not even close to being sustainable, obviously. So That's what I would like to see. Boys, I don't want you even thinking about scoring. Don't even think about it. I want everything to be about what we can do to muck the game up in the most conservative fashion possible. Maybe out of inspiration, go back to look at some Lemaire tapes. I'm not saying we play his style of hockey, but that's how average teams find a way to stay in it, is they're good enough defensively that, all right, we're hanging around, and maybe we can steal the game. Now, yesterday it was 1-1 in the third, right?
They were leading after the first.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it was gone, and then we ended up, I think the last goal was open netter, wasn't it?
It was.
We ended up losing 4-1.
The penalty kill percentage is 60. You guessed it, dead 60%. Last. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's.
But then just some stupid, like Brodin doesn't box out a guy right in the crease. Hartman hits a guy into Gustafsson, who then can't even make a save. Dumb mistakes from this team. The Wolves, they're just trying to tread water until Ant gets back. They lose by 1 point to the Lakers. That's on Wednesday. They play tomorrow on the iHeartRadio app, Timberwolves channel. They play the Hornets.
I think that's there, correct?
It is. Road game. It is in Charlotte.
The Wolves are meandering, but you can at least say, they meandered the last 2 seasons and still ended up being in pretty good position. The Laker game should not leave a good taste in anybody's mouth surrounding the Wolves, and seemingly didn't. You heard a lot of players say they were frustrated. It's that classic case of both teams were missing stars. The Lakers were missing 2 of theirs, and they still played like, we're gonna rise above that. We're gonna be engaged from start to finish. The Wolves were engaged for a short period of time that allowed them to be in a position that seemed to steal the game. But as I said yesterday, I think the basketball gods intervened and said, we're not going to let you steal this game because you really, over the course of the game, don't deserve it. You were at home. It took you too long to figure out what you needed to do to play. And so the goal right now is simple. The rest of the players, and good teams do this, you see it. Even when your best player's out, there is nothing illegal about still winning a bunch of games, especially when it's a short stretch. You're not asking this team to be good for 2 months without Ant. You're asking them to be competitive and a factor for a few games. And I mentioned this on Enough Said on TV. I don't know what time we're going to be on tonight because it's going to have to be on Fox 9 after the Game 6 of the World Series. We all fell in love with Terrence Shannon last year. Looked like he was ready to emerge. He had that great energy, downhill, the whole bit, couldn't be stopped. He's not off to a very impressive start. And again, one of the young guys on this team, I believe, has to be part of the solution. And early, we're not seeing it from him. We're not seeing anything good defensively from him as well. Dillingham's been in and out, but I think everybody just plugged Shannon in and said, hey, we saw it last year. He's ready to take the step. He is not taking the step right now.
Completely agree. There you have it.
That's good enough for me.
Time, yeah.
We've got Lavelle coming up at 5:30. If you have questions for him, pass those along to us, and we will get to some interesting texts that have come in before we get to Lavelle. Stay tuned.
Before we go with the fan, a 2-minute junk truck. I want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks to the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com. The keyword is dollar this hour. Keyword dollar. KFAN.com. Keyword dollar. Join Guardsy this Sunday at Gray's Food Hall for a Purple Watch Party. You can come catch the Purple in action against Detroit Sunday at noon. Enjoy great food and drinks. Enter for your shot to win awesome prizes every quarter. Get all the details now. KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Pelissero gets it. Here's a quote. This is via Vikings.com. He was interviewed on the Vikings studio set. To beat Detroit in Detroit, I think, would just be a galvanizing type of thing. It counts the same relative to being a division game, but it would just feel like a momentous moment. That's, frankly, what the Vikings need. I'm not saying they're going to do it. I don't think they will. But sometimes, if you define a momentous moment, I think it's this, where there's no logic to it. You're the inferior team right now in terms of what you've established to this point, but that's what would make it galvanizing if somehow, some way, illogically as it appears to be, you find a way to do it. You play your best game of the season. The Lions play down a little bit. That's sort of the position they're in. That's the sort of plant your feet kind of a thing you need. It doesn't make sense right now. It may not be in them. They may not have it in them to do it, but that's sometimes, if you're going to change the direction of an entire season, which looks like it's hanging by a thread, that's your only chance, I think, to do it is a game like this, on the road, division opponent, et cetera, et cetera. A section item I want to get to before Lavelle. 2 federal judges today. There's been a lot of discussion having to do with the SNAP program and the number of people who might very quickly find themselves in significant trouble regarding food assistance benefits. 2 federal judges today said the Trump administration must use emergency funds to keep paying federal food assistance benefits a day before they were set to be suspended because of the government shutdown. The first judge is John McConnell in Rhode Island. He issued a temporary restraining order during a hearing directing the USDA to use contingency funds to make payments under the SNAP Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Quote, "There is no doubt, and it is beyond argument, that irreparable harm will begin to occur if it hasn't already occurred," said the judge. In a related case, Judge Indira Talwani in Massachusetts today said the move to suspend SNAP benefits was likely unlawful and that the government was required to use emergency funds as needed to make payments. The government has argued that the nearly $6 billion in contingency funds won't be enough to cover November benefits. SNAP payments typically cost roughly $8 billion a month. Talwani instructed the government to inform her if they intended to authorize at least partial payments, or they would explore using other funding sources to make full payments. The 2 orders may help temporarily alleviate, writes the Wall Street Journal, one looming crisis resulting from the impasse between Republicans and Democrats on a bill to fund the government and end the shutdown. Remember, the SNAP program is massive. It helps 42 million poor and disabled Americans buy food. Retailers and manufacturers also count on the sales from SNAP spending. Unclear how quickly the Trump administration could move to deploy. Now, the question also, the assumption would be that the Trump administration would appeal these rulings. I don't know exactly how that would work, but the judges have ruled here, and we'll see where it goes from here. If that means there's a reprieve and the money will show up somehow, some way, will the Trump administration abide by the judges' rulings? They tend to be selective on that, but that's the latest information on it. On a maybe related note, see if I can find it here. This was a headline, New York Post today. JFK forced to ground all planes due to wild winds and shutdown as all of NYC's major airports are in crisis. JFK was forced to ground all planes today as the metro area's 2 other major airports were also snarled by high winds as the ongoing government shutdown has reduced air traffic control center staffing. So some of this has to do apparently with the weather, but some of this has to do with the inability to deal with these kinds of weather conditions as easily because of the shutdown and reduced air traffic staffing as well. LaGuardia and Newark airports were also ordered to ground all planes due to the gusty weather. According to the FAA, travelers should expect widespread ripple delays and check with the airline for the latest flight status. Now, this is not unprecedented. Sometimes in these kinds of winds, these things happen, but it sounds like the situation is exacerbated by not having the usual numbers in the control towers that might help these airports deal with some very challenging conditions. That was a couple of hours ago. I don't know. We may even have some people traveling back from New York who could give us an update on exactly that. So a couple stories related to the shutdown. And, like I said, it doesn't, I don't think there's anything more basic or fundamental than SNAP funds in terms of, this is how some people are fed. And you'd like to think that cooler heads would prevail and we find a way for the 2 sides to come together at least on that much. But to this point, it doesn't appear the Trump administration is interested in playing ball in that regard. So we'll keep you posted if we get anything new on that. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open if you have questions for Lavelle at 64686. He wrote, Mr. Puck wrote about the hockey team earlier in the week. We might get to a little bit of what he had to say there. And I'm guessing a little bit about the Twins' managerial decision. We'll see how he feels about that. Vikings, Lions, maybe a little bit of Gophers, and the general sad condition of the Minnesota sports scene on the men's side, which we have sadly, but I think necessarily, been covering this entire week on the Bumper to Bumper program, where we try to maintain the mantra that the truth cannot be controversial. Lavelle is next.
If you want to chime into what's happening with your favorite KFAN shows, you can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. So let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard text message and data rates block.
TV question for the aficionados out there who might have more details on this. And Blake Moore, you may know something about it. I'm not sure. But I am told that ESPN, ABC, and Disney just got yanked from the YouTube TV. That there's I guess, contractual battle that's going on there right now. And of course, we're heading to a sports weekend, lots of college football as well. Is this going to be one of those short, lived standoffs or something that lasts a while? But I'm assuming now there's a lot of YouTube TV people who aren't, they're not living in 1985. They don't care about what people have done traditionally. So they may be feeling this and be at this moment frustrated by it. A battle between YouTube TV and ESPN, ABC, and Disney. Lavelle, are you a big YouTube TV subscriber? Are you affected by this?
No, I'm still an Xfinity customer. I'm not sure for how much longer. I always think about kind of just unplugging and go a la carte, because besides my Xfinity account, I've got Paramount Plus, I've got Netflix, I've got, what else? I got HBO Max, I got Amazon Prime. I got all this stuff, and I'm like, I need to streamline some of this stuff because the money's just going out left and right.
There's no question.
Sometimes I gotta figure out how to corral some of this in here. But I do have friends who have YouTube TV. Especially, one person got it because the Twins games were available on there a few years ago, and so he was watching Twins games via YouTube TV. So I don't know how he's getting the Twins games now, or if you really want to watch the Twins right now if they were playing. But I saw the headline. I didn't read the story. I saw the headline about some sort of snap. Yeah. It's amazing how these things could come out of nowhere, and it's never communicated to the consumer that this may be coming down the pike. I still blame the Twins for not communicating their issues, with their provider a couple of years ago, last year, at least warning them instead. All of a sudden, I was finding out at the last second. I thought that was not fair to their base here. So hopefully the sides reach a conclusion and find a deal sooner than later, while people are, without the option of watching their favorite sports.
Believe it or not, I want to start with hockey with you, and I want Blake Moore to get in on this as well. A text got my attention from earlier in the show, and I want to get your reaction, Lavelle, and yours as well, Blake Moore. This is from 218 guy. Is it 218? Let's see. Let me double check the area code. 218. We seem to be...
218? Is that Duluth? What is that?
That's definitely north. We seem to be forgetting how much the Wild outperformed expectations early last year. They got out to that super hot start, then barely hung on to make the playoffs, albeit without Kaprizov. So we have a return to the mean going on here. For everyone who thought we would become an instant Stanley Cup contender the first year after the Parise-Suter contracts were off the books, aren't really seeing the forest for the trees. This is when the rebuild starts, people. And I would say we're actually ahead of schedule on said rebuild. It's going to take some time. Lavelle, what do you think? Is he being too reasonable there? Is he letting the franchise and the general manager and the team off the hook too easily, or is he saying what we really have to better understand, even if it's frustrating to hear it?
Well, I pushed back on his first assertion that they overachieved last year because, well, I don't know if he used overachieved, but they missed Kaprizov for half the season. Eck missed like 30 games. If those guys are healthier, that's like a 105, 107 point team. Playing great hockey. So I don't think it was an overachievement. I think they got on a roll, and Kaprizov was entering that echelon of being an elite player. And Goldie was stepping up his game. And Marco Rossi improved from a year ago. By the way, Rossi is improving from last year as well right now. So I don't think it was. I don't think it was. I don't want to say. I don't think it was over. I don't think we were over-amped about what we saw last year. It's just that they weren't healthy, and when they were healthy, they were a damn good team until they got to the postseason. Now, the second part, I think there's a little bit of a happy days are here again feeling when the Wild got out from under Parise and Suter's contract, and then they signed Rossi, and then they signed Kaprizov. I think there was a lot of good feeling there. But he's kind of right that we need to take a step back on this. I wrote we needed to change our expectations. We shouldn't expect. I think the expectation going into the season for me was that the Wild were going to be a 100-point team. They're going to make the playoffs, and damn it, it's time for them to win a postseason series. That was my expectations for this club going into the season. I'm worried about what I saw here. I'm worried about what I'm seeing because they're not playing their game. And defensively, there's breakdowns. When your coaches talk about you guys aren't being tough enough, that's a damning statement. They're not checking, and when they do check, it's a stick check. It's not a body. Even John Hines pointed out that they were in the top 6 in the hockey last year in limiting shots in the slot. And now teams are just firing away down Main Street. That's stuff that didn't happen a year ago. And a lot of the same personnel is back. And just because, I know Niegelsturm's out, so he's hurt. So his face-off ability is hurting him on the penalty kill. And Zuccarello is simpatico with Kaprizov, and he's out. That's been hurting. But, man, you're always going to have injuries. I mean, we had this conversation the last couple of weeks about the NFL. There's always going to be someone broke down in hockey, just like it is in football. So the ability to improvise and overcome is a challenge that players individually and the coaching staff has to deal with on a continuing basis. And right now, the Wild are not doing that. And also, beyond the fact that, they started the season with 6 players under 24 on the roster, something like that, and they're breaking in rookies. They got blue liners like Zeev Bulliam and David Jurasek, who have been making a boatload of mistakes, especially Jurasek. Bulliam, mishandling pucks and passes on the power play, breaking down that way. He is still contributing a little bit. You could see the offensive potential. You also see that he is a skinny little dude who's getting most of it off the puck time and time again. And they are just learning how to play in NHL. So John Hines has had to limit their ice time. They're down to playing 14, 13 minutes a game now, while other guys are playing 20 minutes. I've noticed that. William wasn't on the power play. The game I covered against Winnipeg, it was Spurgeon in favor. So he's had to make some adjustments coming out of the gate because it's not looked good. But they're trying to find their game. They're trying to find their identity. Weird. I think the Vikings are trying to find their identity as well. We got an identity crisis in town here with the men's teams.
Blakemore,
Wolves too, now that I think about it.
That's a lot of them.
But I know. So I just think there's a lot of issues going on with the Wild now. And so I disagree a little bit with his first assertion, but I do believe that he's right, that trying to win and develop right now, and the veteran players aren't doing enough to win, and the rookies are looking like rookies, and Kaprizov's making mistakes all over the ice. Some people believe he may be trying to press, trying to make up for what else is going on the ice and is leading the problems. That may be possible, but when the coach comes out and says, I have to have a talk with him about making better decisions, that's not good either. So there's a lot of negative. There's no Ubuntu on this team right now, and they got to find it sooner than later.
Blakemore, what do you think?
I mean, I agree and disagree with the text. I agree with parts. I do think the returning to a mean, the Wild should be closer to what they were last year at the beginning of the year than they are what they are showing right now. I would say It's not really a mean. I don't think they're as good as they showed earlier in the year or earlier last year, but they're closer to that. the problem with me is the rebuild is well underway, and it's true that we're playing a lot of young players, and I'm all for that. My problem is that a rebuild typically means you show some people out the door, and you bring new people in the door. And one thing we know with Billy G is he is loyal to his guys to a fault, to an end. I mean, Johansson, who has been playing well, but I mean, he brought him back on a vet minimum where they probably wouldn't have. It is seeming to be paying off at least slightly. Gaudreau was here for like 3 years longer than he probably should have been. There are guys on this team and in the coaching staff that he is just loyal to. And so I don't agree entirely with the rebuild because eventually you've got to actually build something new, and it just feels like we're running back the same thing for the most part. And right now it's not good enough, but I mean, hopefully they turn it around. It's a long season.
Let's talk football, Lavelle. I want to talk both on the college level with the Gophers and the Vikings. And it was a horrific weekend, as you well know. In both cases, the Pollad term applies, total system failures. The Vikings were never really in the game against the Chargers. What did we lose by? It ended up being 37-10. We continued to play we continued to play a quarterback. I don't know what we thought we were proving, that he's good. We're going to be a tough guy and he wants to play, so we keep throwing him out there. He looked like he was going to die out there. He looked like he was in agonizing pain. He also didn't look like through much of it that as the game went on that he was really even capable of doing anything in a game where it might not have mattered if he could. Offense and defense completely beaten at the line of scrimmage by Harbaugh's gang. In the case of the Gophers, you could argue it was even worse in that at one point in that ball game, the homestanding Iowa Hawkeyes had 31 points and the Golden Gophers had 1 yard of total offense. That was the comparison. 31-1 points to yards. So, which team, I guess it's an easy question if I ask you which team has a better chance to recover, largely because the Gophers are at home playing a very beatable Michigan State team. Meanwhile, the Vikings have to go to Detroit to take on the Lions. Do you give them any chance to pull the upset that they obviously need if they're going to kind of shock the system and give people the impression, maybe even themselves the impression, that they can still save this season?
You talking about the Vikings?
Yeah.
Or either one.
Vikings. Yeah. All right.
I wouldn't even take the Vikings in the points if I was in Vegas. Because my big concern is that what the hell's going on defense. I think the interior of their defensive line, their tackles, have not. Hargrave has not been good, and the other guys not been much better. And the Chargers were running down their throats. And they were so chest deep in preseason about how great the defensive tackles looked, and they were able to trade Harrison Phillips because they had other guys they thought they can get the job done. Well, it's not happening, and they're getting obliterated up the gut. Justin Herbert completing passes through the middle, just torching the middle of that secondary. I was trying to figure out what's going on there from a pressure standpoint, from a coverage standpoint, from an assignment standpoint. That's really concerning for Brian Flores' defense. So they got small corners, and the bigger receivers can give them problems, especially if they got some speed. I just don't know what's going on in the secondary there. And if Jim Harbaugh can carve up that defense, what do you think that the Detroit Lions can do with this two-headed running attack of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and with the weapons that Jared Goff has across the board with his 3 receivers and Sam Laporta? That's a tall task for the Vikings to go on the road and overcome. And they've lost the last 5 times they faced the Lions. I was reading the Star Tribune today, and Ben Gensley mentioned that the last time they lost 5 straight was when the Vikings goes back to when the Vikings were an expansion team. I was like, oh my God, So that's pretty remarkable. I don't have any confidence that the Vikings are going to go in and win this game. I don't have any confidence that they're going to get within, was it 8.5 points or 9.5 points?
I think it's 8.5 right now.
I don't know if they can get within 8.5. With J.J. McCarthy making his 3rd NFL start, right? 3rd NFL start. And you're asking to come in and manage the offense where the offensive line is still trying to get whole. Don't know when they're going to have their starting center back, if ever. T.J. Hawkinson's been MIA. Don't know what you think about the running game. This is just too tough of a task task for the Vikings to overcome. If I was a betting man, I would take the Lions. I'd take them to cover, man. The Gophers have a much better chance. Although I noticed they're only, a 3.5-point favorite? 2.5? I think.
I didn't check that. We'll double check it. We'll double check that. Yeah. I haven't checked the total.
I mean, that's an indictment on the Vikings too, because the Gophers too, because the Michigan State Spartans aren't anything to write home about either.
They're not.
And they're on the road, and that's all they're favored by. That's a little concerning. Yeah, that Iowa gave an open eye. They got beat in all three phases. Their punter couldn't kick the ball out of bounds. Their best player is a first-year starting quarterback, and when he's not playing well, we see how horrible the offense is. The offensive line is significantly worse than it was a year ago, to the point where his marginalized Darius Taylor, even if he's healthy or not 100%. PJ's got some issues here, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that Michigan State hangs an L on the Gophers tomorrow at Huntington Bank Stadium. So I think the Vikings have a much harder path to beat their opponent this weekend. But we could be back on your show on Monday lamenting another weekend in which both the football teams get a L on them.
That would be you want to talk about devastating back to back, especially if the Gophers can't take care of. I think Michigan State is winless in the conference to this point. They haven't gotten blown out of every game. They did get blown out by the Hoosiers most recently, but that's a game you got to win. Derek Shelton will be introduced as the new Twins manager, I think, Tuesday. Do you subscribe to the theory that this pick is too safe a managerial choice?
I would have been fine with either Shelton or James Ralston. I think the question that the Twins struggle with during this process is if James is ready for his first opportunity to manage. I like James' resume up to this point. J-Roll. We all call him J-Roll. He's worked with great hitters. He's worked on good teams. He was a bench coach under Don Mattingly, who I personally think is he's one of the smartest baseball people I've ever encountered in my travels as a baseball writer. So he worked under a brilliant man in Mattingly, who, by the way, is the bench coach of the Blue Jays in the World Series tonight, trying to win Game 6 and win the series. So I wouldn't have mind James. I think in the Twins' mind, I'm trying to think like I think they would think like. I think they wanted a manager who's got some experience because he wants them to be able to reach out to some of these kids that are trying to get over the hump and try to get them to be more productive. Royce Lewis has to be at the top of the list, and then Brooks Lee has to be close second, followed by Warner. So I think they just wanted to avoid having the first-time manager jitters. But, man, I will tell you this. If there was a time to try a first-time manager, it'd be right now when you're at rock bottom. Yeah. Because there's no indications that they're going to add to this roster. I don't think they're going to add much to it. There's a good chance they may trade Joe Ryan during the offseason, and they're going to have to, reset their rotation. They definitely have to build a bullpen because their bullpen was a playpen the second half of the season. This may have been the right moment to bring in a new guy. So I could see the reasoning behind thinking that the Twins played this one safe. But I do think Shelton's a credible guy. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, he was in a worse situation in Pittsburgh
no doubt.
than the Twins are now because they've never spent on that team. The Pirates during COVID froze their payments to the employees' pension plan, which was I think it was the only team that did that. So they definitely operate on the cheap, but they would never in their minds even think about possibly signing Carlos Correa. At least the Twins tried that. So he coming back here, he's familiar, gets a chance to reset his career and apply some of the things he's learned, as a manager, and see if he can put the Twins on the right track. So I wouldn't mind either one. I kind of wish J-Row would have got his first shot here, but I'm not too upset about Shelton being hired.
Look, that's part of it. You've alluded to part of what worries me here is that that one of the reasons it's a safe choice is that this is a manager who's already accustomed to even worse payroll conditions. And to that extent, they're going to assume that he's not going to be a guy who's going to chafe much about it or complain much about it because he's already learned how to deal with it. And I mentioned on the Enough Said, the TV show, which is going to be on sometime late tonight on Fox 9 after the Game 6 of the World Series, which I want to get to in a minute, that the move strikes me. And again, this says nothing about his ability as a manager, because I think most people think he's a competent, very competent baseball guy. But it feels like a country club move. I used to call the Wolves the 600 First Avenue Country Club back in the McHale flip days, where they got kind of caught in the middle, make the playoffs every year, get knocked out in the first round. And I felt like they all had been around each other so long in the country club that they were reinforcing each other's views and protecting each other. And what was really needed was a voice from outside of all of it. And by the way, they brought that voice in briefly, Dwayne Casey, and basically the country club never gave him a chance to actually be the coach that I think he could have been. And to me,
I liked Dwayne Casey. I thought he got kicked out by the players.
I agree. Well, he got kicked out. No, it was also, well, we got to put Randy Whitman back as the interim coach, as the country club member for so long. And this feels country clubbish to me. This is a guy they already know. Chances are he's not going to ruffle a lot of feathers. He's not going to make a lot of waves. And you'd like to see, I think, somebody that might even be willing to challenge the front office. I don't mean like open mutiny, but just with some different ideas. Let's hear from somebody completely outside all of this. And because maybe we all need to hear it. And as you say, maybe it's irrelevant if the talent's going to be as limited, or you're going to continue to trade away talent. Maybe we're spinning our wheels, kidding ourselves that any managerial hire matters. I would just, like you say, I'd rather take a chance on a first-time guy because they've got so little to lose at this point.
Well, I would say this though: if they wanted to get out of the country club comfort, they should have, dug in deeper on Scott Service, who was from the Seattle Mariners. He actually managed their playoffs with them. He had Julio Rodriguez when he was a rookie, and tore up the league as a rookie, so he knows how to deal with young players. And maybe he's the guy, because James Ralston was a coach here for 3 years. He's kind of part of the country club.
That's actually true. You could argue that.
He would just be renewing his membership.
Yeah.
So maybe they could have went that route with Service, or maybe, because I don't know the ins and outs of how all these interviews went.
Mm-hmm.
At Service, talked to the Twins. He may have heard about their future and what their plans were, and said maybe this isn't the right place to get back into the game at. He may have decided that too. We don't know that for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of open questions. I mentioned the World Series, which resumes in Toronto. Everybody left Toronto for dead after the 18-inning, mini drama, but they've responded very nicely. The Dodgers are suddenly having difficulty hitting. Are the Dodgers in trouble? Do you think Toronto's got this series?
Toronto's in trouble. Tegan Akel, texted me after that epic game and said, well, the Dodgers going to win the series now. Well, one, she hates the Blue Jays because she's a Yankees fan. All right, so I'm guessing Yankees fans were dancing in the streets after that game. But that all got negated by them beating Ohtani. And once you slay the dragon, anything's possible now.
Yeah, right.
The Blue Jays' ability to work counts, extend at bats, and get some production from different people, even the bottom of their order, figures out a way to have competitive professional at bats. And it has not allowed the Dodgers to carve them up as much, and they have to go to the bullpen. And good things happen when you penetrate that Dodgers bullpen. So I think they got a chance here. If you could beat Ohtani, you could beat Yamamoto. Now, Yamamoto's been a monster this postseason. He's been outstanding. His last start against the Blue Jays and a complete game against the Brewers in the NLCS. But this Blue Jays offense, they could swing it and they could take pro at bat, and they're not going to give in to this guy. So if they can get a decent outing from Kevin Gausman, who I'm worried about a little bit going into this game, they can get a decent outing from Gausman and get to Yamamoto in the first 3 innings, they could win this thing and end the baseball season tonight. And if they don't, it's going to be very interesting for Game 7, because I was reading stories this morning about Ohtani possibly being used as a closer in a Game 7 situation. So that would be pretty interesting.
Oh, that'd be outstanding.
I'm looking forward to settling in and watching some ball tonight.
Last item for you today, Lavelle. How do we explain what I believe is the inexplicable? That in an era in which I get it, baseball is not the national pastime the way it once was, that despite that, the Ohtani story should be much bigger beyond the sort of the relatively closed world of ball guys and baseball fans. I honestly don't think your average sports rube appreciates enough exactly what this young man has accomplished and how pretty much unprecedented his run of pitching and hitting is. I don't feel like it's getting the staying power and the attention that it deserves. Do you agree? And if you do, why is that, do you think?
I don't know why it is. I do agree with you. It's kind of fascinating in that it hasn't been lauded as much. Maybe because we're in the World Series. There's so many different storylines. There's so many tentacles to what goes on over a 7-game series. That's hard to focus on the one thing. But man, ever since he came into Major League Baseball, they've been experimenting. There's been a couple of kids come out of college who were supposed to be good hitters and pitchers, and they just couldn't reach the majors. Ohtani has done it. And there's still no one in the pipeline. We still don't know who the next Ohtani can be. There's no one so what he's doing now is not just generational. It's the entire history of baseball that there's not been a player like him. And it makes you sit in your seat because if he's pitching, you get to watch him pitch, and then you get to watch him hit. And it's such a fascinating draw here. And someone was asking me, we'll never see another athlete like this again. And I said, well, Victor Wembanyama is now bringing the ball up for the Spurs. I want to see where this is headed with him.
Right.
But right now, with Ohtani and the things that he's doing, he's going to go down as the greatest athletes ever. He's going to be up there with Hank Aaron. He's going to be up there with whoever you think is the greatest NBA player ever, regardless if it's Jordan or if it's LeBron or wherever. He's going to be up there with whoever you think the greatest football, Jim Brown or whatever. He's that guy. He's him. He's on right now. He's actually creating the Mount Rushmore will have one face. Yeah. His. Yeah. Because there's no one else who is achieving the things the way he's achieved it.
No, he's made a mockery of the most recent baseball tradition, one of those that I do not at all enjoy, and that is, we're losing the game by 16 runs, so we're going to save our bullpen, and we're going to use everyday, players to finish the game by pitching the last couple of innings. And nobody expects those everyday players to do anything but maybe just get an occasional out, maybe give up 4 runs, but save the arms. And that reminds us just how absurd it is to think that in a game that has the best baseball players in the world, the best hitters and the best pitchers, that one person could be both. Could be great in both categories. It's and on top of it, as you know, in the era of pitching specialization, right? That this guy can be a dominant pitcher and still the best hitter in the ballpark. Not to mention, I'm told he's probably the fastest dodger. Somebody wrote this as well. We're seeing something really special, and I don't think it's being properly appreciated at all.
Yeah, and then a couple years ago, I wrote a column on a Saints player who I think he was an occasional starter, but mostly a utility player, but he was trying to pitch and be a reliever as well, and that didn't pan out. But that's like the closest, a AAA guy just trying to extend his career by being a reliever in addition to being a position player. Not expected to be a 300 hitter, not expected to be a 20-game winner or be able to strike out 2 batters every inning. Just to survive as a multi-positional player, not someone who can play on an elite level like Ohtani. So we got to enjoy this, ladies and gentlemen, while it lasts. This is quality entertainment, and he's great for baseball. He's wonderful for the latest in many Japanese players who have come over here and have been able to produce. He's one of one, but it's still tip of the cap for that country and what it's contributed to baseball as well, because it's made this sport a lot smaller, and it's made things more fascinating.
What's the Sunday column?
Well, I got 2, believe it or not. I did a column. I went back and looked at Twins managers and the transitions, how they've gone, and I found a common thread, the history of familiarity with these hires And two, there's always a first-year bump when a new Twins manager comes in. Tom Kelly won World Series his first full season. Gardy won the division title. Even Mahler finished with a winning record after the Twins had lost 90 games 4 straight years. So there could be a little bit of bump with Shelton. If he can get a winning record out of this crew, I think we should just give him a statue, right away. And then I'm also covering the Gopher game tomorrow against Michigan State.
Ooh,
so
Michigan
I got
State.
2 things in Sunday's paper.
All right. Well, good luck on both on the especially Gophers Michigan State. I hope you can make the deadline. Isn't a Sunday deadline like 2:00? I think the game doesn't start till 2:40.
No, it's 2:30, and I got till 7. So
7?
We'll get it in some way somehow.
Oh, that's more liberal than I expected. Thanks as always. Have a great weekend.
We're running out of time for that. That's going to change by the end of the year.
Well, I'm not surprised. We'll talk next week. Thanks, Lavelle.
Thanks for having me.
Lavelle E. Neal III. This gives us a nice stretch of time to review some fascinating texts that have come in throughout a very busy program today on a number of highly controversial subjects. We'll get to those and more next.
Fan.
We all remember that one teacher who made a difference, believed in us, challenged us, or just made learning fun. Well, now's your chance to say thank you in a big way with iHeartRadio's Thank a Teacher. It's powered by Donors Choose. How many outstanding public school teachers gone above and beyond for their students to win $5,000 to stock their classroom with whatever they need? Help us say thank you to the educators shaping our future. Nominate your favorite teacher now. iHeartRadio.com/teachers. iHeartRadio.com/teachers.
We were chatting earlier about my unscientifically based belief that people have lost the thread on adjusting in the darkness to another car coming towards them, which back in the day obligated said driver who had his bright lights on or her bright lights on to flick them off so that the car coming in the other direction is not blinded. I have found this endless array of examples of people who either were oblivious or, quite frankly, didn't care, and I was trying to figure out what that was all about. We got a lot of text on that earlier, and some people believing, well, the new LED lights, those aren't the brights. And I'm saying, well, I'm a little more careful about that because I am aware of that change. These are where the old-fashioned 2 headlights and the second one being illuminated indeed does indicate bright lights are on. And I got a text that I saved from an individual. This is via the, let's see, what area code, I think 763, saying, Dan, do you remember the button on the floorboard for brights? Now, I'm guessing that phrase means absolutely nothing to you as a youngster.
So
Because
a button on the floorboards, so you have to push it with your foot?
Exactly it. Once upon a time.
It seems counterintuitive.
Well, it was, I don't know what's best, but he's 100% right that once upon a time, that's how you turn the bright lights on. You didn't have anything on the console. There was a button on the left-hand, on the floor towards the left-hand side that you tapped with your foot.
Your left foot?
Your left foot.
Okay.
That allowed you to go to brights. And it is an interesting relic from automotive history that we have somebody in our audience who's old enough or experienced enough to remember exactly that. Yeah, once upon a time, that is how. And it's actually not that bad of an idea because your foot is in a spot where then you don't have to mess with the steering wheel. You don't have to mess with any of the buttons, the directional button, whatever it might be. But yeah, those were the olden days. Maybe that act made you more conscious of what you were doing, and there was more of a willingness and understanding that, I got to hit the button again because somebody's coming from the other direction. I don't want to blind them. I want to be respectful of the possibility that other people are coming from the other direction, and it might have difficulty seeing everything if I blind them with the so-called bright lights. A number of other texts on a number of this is from much earlier. We were talking to Ben Gessling about the Vikings' inability to stop the run, and the Lions obviously being one of the best running teams in football, with 2 runners averaging basically 5 yards or more a carry. And I laid out the number of teams, good teams, who are among the top teams in the league when it comes to yardage allowed per game on the ground. And somebody said, well, that can be a misleading stat, because sometimes what that is indicative of is that you're ahead, the team you're playing is behind, so they, even if they want to run, or they can't, because to get back in the game they have to throw. There's some truth to that. That can be the yardage stats can be a little bit misleading. But if you look up yards per attempt, which is a better number, all the teams that we quoted at being very good near the top of the list, also in terms of yardage, were very good also in yards per attempt. And that includes, I think the Lions are 10th. Every team we talked about was top 10. Vikings are, I don't even think, top 20 in that regard as well. In fact, let me find the Vikings total. So you know, every yardage stat can be a little bit misleading depending on team. But on the other hand, you could also say, well, if that means one team is ahead a lot, that means realistically it's a pretty good team. And we'll all agree. I think your Packers club is up high against the run. Let me see if I can find it again. NFL teams, yards, rushing per attempt allowed. Let's see what we have here and see what we come up with via teamrankings.com. Seattle, one of the teams we cited, is number 1 at 3.3 yards per attempt allowed. New England, excellent season, 3.5. Your club is 4th, 3.7, the Green Bay Packers. Very, very good. Vikings, now they're not horrible, but they're in the middle of the pack. They're 16th at 4.3 yards per attempt, tied with a number of teams there. So, you know, most of the teams that we were citing as being very good against the rush in terms of yardage, it adds up a little bit with what they're doing in terms of yards per attempt as well. So it does sort of follow. The Vikings, you could say, have done a little better in terms of yards per attempt than yardage, but we've seen in certain games, how many games have we given up 200 yards rushing? Is it 2, 3, 4? Too often, and it's happened against really good runners like the Atlanta runner, and then we've given it up. We gave up a bunch of rushing yards this game most recently, which doesn't bode well against the Detroit Lions. The bigger stat in terms of the Vikings, in contrasting this defense today from a year ago, is points per game, right? And last year, in terms of yardage, we weren't great. We were kind of bend but don't break, but we were top 5. I think we either tied for 5th or were 5th in scoring defense a year ago. This year, we go into the Detroit game 19th in the National Football League. We have slipped dramatically in that regard. And it's the Sean Salisbury opinion that he's still more bothered by the offense than the defense. And, you know, the argument can be made that this defense has been worn down by an offense that rarely holds on to the ball, always loses the time of possession, and that eventually you break a little bit. If you don't feel like you're getting the help you need, then you're going to get a little weary of having such a large burden. And I don't completely rule that out, but I think we've seen enough fundamental breakdowns defensively, even from the start of the game forward, that to put all this on the offense is a mistake. What's the best, you know, helper to a struggling defense? The offense holds on to the ball longer and keeps the ball away from the other team's offense. And that has not happened here. We like again the number of short drives and possessions, we had a bunch of those again against the Chargers, is legendary. And part of the reason you could say, well, we didn't run enough or we didn't get this established, is we didn't have enough plays. The only chance to get anything established is to have first downs, sustain drives, and you have a chance to, whatever your plan offensively was, whatever you wanted to put together, you can get to it because you have enough plays that give you a chance to get to all aspects of whatever your offensive game plan might be. We'll pause here, wrap up the program, remind you what you missed from earlier in a very busy show, and what we'll also tell you what we have coming up next here in the Fan.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
A standing array of guests today, notwithstanding Carl Gerbschmidt prediction segment at 3:30 this afternoon. We also had Ben Gessling at 4:30 to help preview Vikings and Lions, and of course Lavelle at 5:30 tonight. Is it Vikings X's and O's? No, it's got a different name tonight.
2-minute warning.
It's 2-minute warning tonight. And then I don't know, what do we have after that? Is it syndicated program?
Yeah, pretty much goes to the burn after that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. A 1-hour edition of sermons scheduled Sunday. So Packer preview is 7 to 8 on Sunday?
Yes.
7 to 8 Packer preview.
Don't miss it.
Gopher football Sunday, 8 to 9. A 1-hour edition of sermons, 9 to 10, and then Vikings pregame will start at 10 o'clock on Sunday. Texter Nate writes, the Vikings are 28th in offensive plays per game. That's at least a contributing factor to the defensive struggles. It's an absolute factor. It's a factor on the offense and defense struggling, quite frankly. That's sort of self-explanatory, but you got to be able to string together drives, and in part because that usually leads to good things offensively, and also because it does take some of the pressure off of your defense. That's been one of the biggest issues for this team, sustaining things, which is why I've said earlier, I hope that the objective is just holding on to the ball. Doesn't mean you have to get too conservative, doesn't mean you can never try to throw over the top, but I just want to see first downs put together. And, back in training camp when this team said a lot of things that haven't come to fruition, that's part of what we heard. It's okay to take the short pass. It's okay to just keep a drive alive for 4 more downs, even if we're not getting 32 yards in the play. The head coach really hasn't adhered to any of that. And the other thing, let's be clear, and this is why we learned the hard way again to not put so much stock in what people see in training camp, good or bad. What did we hear the entire training camp? My God, this defense that was good last year, they've got a chance to be historic this year. They're dominating everything in practice. And we're learning the limitations of what that really in the end means, because it didn't mean much of anything. Maybe part of the reason the defense dominated was the offense wasn't very good. And no doubt, again, the best ally of a good defense is an offense that keeps the other team's offense off the field. So that's a factor, but every aspect of this team is going to have to improve as soon as this Sunday to knock off the Lions and give the sense that, like Pat Riley says, this club is ready to plant its feet and to take a stand. And it may not make sense. It may not be logical, but that's really the only way I think you change the feeling about this team and get people going, wait a minute. Now, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something that the Vikings can indeed build on. I'm as curious as anybody. I am not optimistic because I think the Lions don't care. They're not here to help. They enjoy beating the crap out of people, and they're very good at it, and they're very efficient at it as well. Thanks for watching today. Thank you indeed for listening, and good luck tonight. It's Halloween night. Weather not conducive, but hope it works out for you. Be safe. Enjoy the candies, and we'll talk to you on Sunday at 9.